Half the other guys on the group thought she found a gold coin, and they're running across the field, and she holds out this bell, and they're going, "What is that?"
Thank you so much, Andy Sabisch, for joining us on the Dig Show. I really, really appreciate it. And we're going to get stuck into a few interesting topics today. I thought, as I said, we'd start quite simple. That when you head out detecting these days, what kind of site gets you really excited? You've been to Africa, Asia. You were talking earlier in test about Ukraine and so on. What's the sort of places that really get you going these days?
One of the things that I think a lot of the newcomers need to kind of shift. It's a paradigm shift for them. It's what I find is not what it's worth, and a lot of people put value on everything that they find. To me, some of my most memorable or to me valuable finds, people look at and go, "What is this? This is not worth anything."
Hmm.
And the history that you can assign to it. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, yesterday, we were out up here in upstate New York, and my brother digs this, and it's a slate miner's tag that was put
Yeah.
on the carts, right?
Yeah.
So what is this worth? There's no value, but his area up here is known for slate mining, so to him that's a lot.
Oh,
The other
absolutely.
thing, I dug this little. Here's a little tag I dug. It's St. Patrick's Day uh, tag. What's it worth? Um, to me, it's unique because you're not going to find one of these in every schoolyard or park or field you go to. So to me, what the site holds, what the history is, and being able to tie that history to it. My wife is phenomenal when it comes to research. We found a wedding band one time, and she did some research on the markings inside, and it turns out the company went out of business in 1913. It made this ring.
Oh, wow.
And the reason it went out of business is because the owner died on the Titanic.
Right.
So little pieces of history like that. What's the ring worth at gold prices? Maybe a couple $100. To me, I'd never sell it because the story I can tie to that piece of history is
Yeah.
priceless.
I totally agree with that. It's someone was saying to me the other day, and by the way, I've got some show and tell for you as well. This here is some cobalt blue infused
Mhm.
glass. It's delaminated, so it's got this beautiful iridescent look to it. I love it. It's from a Roman site. I show a few people that, but I've also got colonial bits and pieces that I'm really interested in. Is it worth much? No. But when we measure success, we're not necessarily saying the monetary value. It's how it feels in here, you know? It's
Yeah.
how it makes you feel when you go out, because otherwise you're not going to be in the hobby for too long. And I understand you've been doing it for well over 50 years. Is that right?
64 is when I got into it. Christmas is 64. So I've been doing it for a number of years. Starting with when I was in the military, I mean, I've been coming over to Europe since the 70s, and I was, in the Navy. So came over, and most of the guys would go out and find a bar and get in trouble. I'd take a metal detector and find a beach or something. So I've been metal detecting in Europe and England particularly since the 70s. Um, you know, Traveled there before, and I've got my wife. She got into it, and
Mm.
we've traveled over there. We bring groups over as well. So we've done a fair amount in England. We typically plan a few years in advance, and we were going to go to the Ukraine in 2022. We planned that out about 3 years earlier.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Ukraine is not where you want to go metal detecting for military relics, right? Well, you can probably find plenty of military relics now.
You've helped countless people get the most out of their machines. What are the most common mistakes that you see people make? Perhaps let's take it in two periods. Let's take it before the advent of multi-frequency technology and so on. You've got your single frequency 70, 80, 90s, and then you've got the modern, what we're looking at now, our current era. What's the most common mistake, Andy?
I would say the most common mistake that you see people make, and I'm gonna break it up instead of years and types of detectors, years as in social media. I think social media has created more problems than they've solved. When you see people watching these YouTube videos, and a lot of these YouTube videos are made by someone with limited experience in a local area, And what
Hmm.
you use over in the UK is not what I would use here in upstate New York using a Deus 2, which is what I was swinging yesterday. So people watch these videos and say, well, now I know how to do it. And they download these programs that invariably create more problems than had they just left well enough alone and left it to factory presets.
I think the instant gratification of social media thinks that you've got to go straight for the hammered silver coin or you're going home, broke, the day is skunked. Um, I find I agree with you a lot about people relying on one program. In fact, you wrote about it, page 23 in the Deus
Huh?
manual. It says navigate between programs. Like, when you've got a program, you switch it over to something else as an error check. Would you still agree with that?
The ability for XP to make two programs or three programs with slight variations where you can toggle between them, to me is unique, and that's what I love about the Deus. I've known Elaine since shortly after the company was founded, and that's his approach is clearly evident that he hunts with the machines. Unfortunately, a lot of the manufacturers, their engineers don't use the equipment. They can design a great detector, but they rely on feedback on what to do. Elaine and his team know what to do because they actually use their equipment. I'm still a firm believer in that. I got a friend of mine in Mississippi that we hunt with regularly, and that's what he'll do. He'll have two or three programs, and if he gets a marginal signal, he'll bounce between left or right one number and check to see what the response is, and
Hmm.
factor everything from the audio response to the visual response to make a determination whether or not it's worth digging or not.
Let's talk tones for a second, Andy, if I may. They're so subjective. How do you personally dial in the tones or audio nuances, depending on the machine type? So, a bit of a free-for-all question there. What kind of sounds do you like to hear? Do you like the square tones, or do you like something that's a little bit like, chirpy? What do you like?
I typically go with square PWM.
Mm.
The multi-tones, I mean, for example, even with the mind laps, one tone per number. My ears are not that good. Maybe it's too many years in an engine room or something, but when people say, "Well, I can hear the difference between a clad dime and a silver dime," I'll use five tones and break it up according to what I'm looking for. So for relic hunting, I'll have the tone breaks differently than I will for coin hunting. But I typically will run a limited number of tones. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't listen to 100 different tones and try to differentiate between a 90 and a
Mm.
92.
I think that works really well for depth as well. I mean, like in brand independent as an answer, like if you've got like two or three tones only, then
Hmm.
the computer, the microchip or whatever is kind of computing what the end sound is going to sound like. And of course, you're not looking at the numbers necessarily. So you're going, is it non-ferrous? Is it ferrous? Okay, I know it's a little bit yes or no, but it does sometimes help you with that, with making your day go a little bit easier. I think when people are stopped from doing something, that seems like it makes sense, to personal gain or historical narrative improving, I think it always pushes it underground, doesn't it? If you're stopping
It
people.
does. I
Yeah.
know that, the term night hawking, I think that's something that you deal with over there. I don't know to what degree, but obviously, that I know I've talked to Nigel, for example, at Regton, and he said that they run that you guys are seeing more of this night hawking going on, where the hell with permission, I'm going to hunt this thing, and it may be at night. That all you need is one or two of those to offset 100 success stories where you've done things correctly.
I totally agree. And you know what? There's two sides of the coin, okay? You've got, and I mean, uh, mudlarking is mudlarking, which I love, and I've been doing it long before metal detecting. But in the context of American history, I understand, and I'm sure you'll chase me down if I'm wrong, that during the American Civil War, a lot of cartography maps, written accounts of where particular objects farmsteads are and advantageous crossing routes and so on, a lot of that was lost. So you've got people like Bo Aquachigger, who and other people as well, of course, who are finding skirmish sites. And the only history we've got to know that that's the case is because you see a line of Menables or other types, and you can kind of piece together who was fighting who and
Mhm.
possibly who even was winning because you might find some of the muskets and smoothbores thrown in the river. But you know what? Field walking teaches a lot as well. I won't delve too much on mudlarking and field walking, but I think when you have detectorists, just talking about social media, if you've got detectorists who are walking around and they're finding, shells or something like that, something that someone would have eaten out of for a while, some pottery or whatnot, and they're able to actually ID it,
Mhm.
give an idea of its use, I think that's so invaluable. And I think that teaches a real lesson to people about, again, expectation.
Yep.
I want to talk tech now, if I may. So,
Okay.
looking at technology from analog buzz boxes to modern multi-frequency machines, what's the biggest genuine game changer for the hobby? We've talked about multi-frequency. Can we still say that it's in its emergence?
Probably, you're reaching the apex. I mean, there may be a new technology that's going to give you something else. Several years ago, there was an article in one of the magazines. I used to write for Lost Treasure magazine before they went out of business.
Okay.
And there was an article, it was about a 5-page article about a new machine that was coming out. And it would show you what's in the ground. I mean, it had a picture, it was grainy, but it showed you, a diamond amongst nails and a gold ring and amongst pull tabs. And I'm reading this article and I hadn't gotten to the end yet. Told my wife, I said, I don't care how much it costs, I'm buying this machine. And at the end, it was April Fool's Day. It was a joke, but it was a great article. And then I thought about it. I'm going, if I had a machine that showed me exactly what was in the ground, I could say, well, I don't want to dig a dime today. I'm looking for a quarter. Is that really a machine? Would that take away some of the skill, some of the excitement when you go out there and you never know what you're going to find when you dig that clump of dirt over?
Maybe we as people are not able to take any more information in. We're talking about evolution of detectors. Maybe we're at a point where we don't want to go any further.
I think you're right. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people, if they buy a new machine, they're forced to sell their old machine to buy the new machine, and I understand that. But what I do when a new machine comes out or I'm asked to test a machine, people probably avoid me when I'm out in the field in the park or school or whatever, because I'll have 4 machines with me. I'm dragging 4 different detectors with me. I'm marking targets and I'm trying to see, did this machine do something different or is it just I happened to swing the coil over that, whereas the other one I didn't? Because people say I went to a worked out 20-acre park and I found 3 silver dimes. Well,
Got
first of
it.
all, there's no such thing as a worked out 20-acre park. So did you check it with another machine? Would the other
Mm,
machine have found that same target? And I think what you're finding is a lot of people are buying a machine and going out and getting excited because they found something the other machine didn't. But why? Was it not
yeah.
set correctly? Was it the coil didn't go over it? And
Yeah.
my backyard, my house is built in the 1880s. It was a site of an original blacksmith shop. So the backyard is just littered with iron. And I'm still pulling stuff out of that yard, after hunting that thing almost every day. I go out there and my wife calls it my therapy session. I go out to get one good target and then I come back in. Sometimes I'm out for 5 minutes, sometimes I'm out there for an hour, but I'm going to force myself to find something in the
Yeah.
iron.
I'll tell you what, I bet when you come back with a button, you look like you're a peach.
Yep, it's I got something.
A good way to bookend it is to say that, okay, machines, we've come quite far, maybe as far as we need. Now it's about how can you interpret the sound coming out. It's the hearing now. My ears aren't going to change. Yours definitely aren't going to change. And that's going to be is headphones and things like that. I want to finish up now on a little bit about books. So when you write your books, do you decide what technical details need to be included and what to simplify? What's your process for translating like what is effectively quite complex metal detectors into something that I can read?
the key difference on my books is I try to get in touch with people that I know were either involved in the testing or heavy users of the machine, not just social media users, and ask them, what's important to you in your area for your type of hunting. Well, if I see the same question repeated multiple times in multiple forums, that's obviously something that I need to address in the book. So, my new books have all got a, common question set chapter.
One final thing as well. We know that there's a Manticore book just come out. Great. Andy, what's next in it for you? And is there a Deus 2 book on the horizon at some point?
The Deus 2 book actually was going to come out before the Manticore book, but the upgrades, I I did it with Nocta with the Legend. They said that they were done with updates, and I put the book out a month later. The update started again, so it makes the book then somewhat obsolete. And people say, well, you can put an update or supplement out. I really don't want to do that. So the Deus 2 book was 99% done, and then version 3 came out.
Yeah, got it. Got it.
So,
Understood.
and again, I can't take a beta version and write a book about a beta version. So until, now it's locked in and the coils are still in limited supply, I need to make sure that that is locked down and we're pretty much done at least for a year before I put
Hmm.
that book out. But it's pretty much done without the version 3 update.
I love that. Thank you so much for that. I know it was something I didn't want to touch on too much, but guys, you saw it. We're 99-ish% there. We don't want to be doing anything beta. Let's give it some time. Andy Sabisch, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciated that. We've learned a lot about not just like detecting philosophy. We've learned a little bit about bits that go into your book and or books rather, should I say. So I want to say thanks once again. It's a real pleasure having you. Your perspective bridges that technical and the human side of detecting quite perfectly.